The Whore Whisperer. Okay, so you remember that story I told you guys a while back about the model that I sort of defended? It's down there. I hadn't heard from her in a few months, and she called me from Saint-Tropez and said, hey, I'm coming to LA. Can I stay with you for a couple days? Well, she comes over and sleeps over Friday night, Saturday night. And then Sunday morning, she gets up and she says, I'm going to take a shower. And I said, cool, go ahead. It's out, and I can hear her sort of getting ready and putting her makeup on. And the sheets start vibrating, so I start fishing around for my phone. And I grab it, but it's her phone. And it says, you have a message from Mohammed on seekingarrangements.com. If you don't know what that is, look it up. So impulsively, I say, hey, babe? And she goes, yeah, babe. And I said, you have a message from Mohammed at Seeking Arrangements. She says, oh my God, are you spying at me? Why are you looking at my phone? And she gets really upset. So I said, come on. I said, show me your hustle. Show me how this works. And she says, you want to see my hustle? You want to see how I do this? I said, yeah, show me. So she calls the guy back, and he's got a strong Middle Eastern accent. And he goes, I am staying at the Peninsula Hotel. I would like to take you to lunch. And she goes, it's $1,000 to take me to lunch. And he goes, okay, no problem. And she says, can we go shopping afterward too? And he goes, yes, no problem. So she turns to me and she says, hey, listen, I'm not going to have sex with this guy. I only have sex with like 3% of the guys I go out with from this app, and they're guys that I would have sex with anyway. So, it shouldn't be more than a couple of hours. Can I come back here and we have sex afterward? And I said, yeah, sure. True to her word, 2-3 hours later, she comes back and she's got a big Saint Laurent shopping bag, 2 of them actually, a giant one and then like a mid-sized one, and a small Gucci shopping bag. And I said, you did pretty well. And she says, yeah, I got you a present. And she hands me the Gucci shopping bag. And I said, what's this? And she goes, for you. And I open it up, it's a shoebox, and it's a pair of these really horrendous pair of velvet slippers with like fur. And I said, first of all, how did you convince that Arab guy to buy you a pair of men's shoes? Second of all, how'd you know I was a size 11? I told him it was my dad's birthday and I didn't have any money, and I got your shoe size out of your closet. And I said, you're pretty cool. So I said, are you making a lot of money from these guys at least? And she said, that's the problem. I'm not making that much money, but I'm really rich in luxury goods. I said, listen, new rules. If you're going shopping, only have them take you to Barney's and Neiman Marcus. And she said, why is that? And I said, because there's 2 stores where you can return and they'll actually give you physical cash. And she goes, that's pretty smart. And I don't hear from her for another month or 2, which is not usual at all. And out of the blue, she calls me and she says, Daddy, you're a genius. And I said, why am I a genius? And she said, do you remember when you told me about, having guys only take me to like Barney's and Neiman Marcus? I said, yeah, why? And she goes, I have like $37,000 in my bank account. You should do this for a living. You should be like a coach for Instagram models. You're like a whore whisperer.